And here we go.
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Wow. Give yourselves a round of applause.
All right, that's enough. Yeah.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
Look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, we got spring football. We got Sweet 16, men's and women's side. We've got a lot going on the program today. So hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you've liked us because we like you. Caleb likes you in a weird way. Is this Rick Barnes' last chance to make the Final Four? Also, who will start in the slot for Tennessee? That'll be Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 4 downs, the Vols' best athletics year. Guys, it might be this one. It's certainly in the conversation. We'll look back at some of the greatest seasons of all time from an all-sports standpoint. This day in Tennessee sports history. Urban Meyer is once again a piece of stuff. Also, Gary Danielson will retire after the 2025 season. It's a big deal, I think, for a guy that is going to step into that seat, I've been told. Charles Davis, former Vols. So that's pretty cool. Stat of the day as well. March Madness ratings are actually up. And I will tell you, getting on the Charles tip for a second, it is really odd when I play, because I've known Charles Davis for over 20 years. It's very strange, Caleb, when I play, I believe it's the Madden game. Maybe you can help me. I don't play him that often. But I believe it's the Madden game where he's the color commentator. And it's so strange to hear a guy that you've known with a very distinctive voice for 20 years. And there he is. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
Good. Does that help Tennessee? Charles Davis being the color commentator? I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Big Ten on CBS now, and the ratings are just nowhere near where they were when the SEC was doing it. We saw that last year. One, because they don't just the CBS doesn't just carry the SEC by nature draws better ratings than the Big Ten because the SEC has more teams that are valuable. But on top of that, it's not like CBS is carrying the Big Ten game of the week. They're carrying one of 3 Big Ten games every week. So they could be carrying the 3rd best Big Ten game.
What's true.
Whereas like last year with CBS, with SEC, they were carrying the best SEC game each week.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss this in a little bit. But if I'm Josh Heupel and I'm playing, I don't know, Ohio State at Columbus in the playoffs, I'm calling Charles Davis because I think he gets some insight in those production meetings that other media just doesn't get. Maybe I pick up something that Ryan Day said back in October. We'll discuss that and more. So we've got a loaded show. Might be joined by a very special guest. I think he won 6th Man of the Year. Oh, yeah, and he will join us. Ron Slay will join us, former Vol. I just checked my phone. He will join us a little bit later in the program. So here we go. It is today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Is this Rick Barnes' last chance to make the Final Four? I say yes, because I think it's a perfect assemblage of talent. Caleb disagrees. Here we go. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones. We'll have that question. It is up on the poll on the YouTube page, so you can vote now. We encourage you to do so. Off the Hook Sports, hit like and subscribe.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show.
All right, Caleb, here we go. Go ahead and tell me why you don't think this is Rick Barnes' last chance to make the Final Four. He will be 71 this summer. I'm curious what our audience says. We'll get to the poll question here momentarily, but today's tough question is for you and me. What do you got?
Yeah, so I don't think this is Rick Barnes' last chance because I think Rick Barnes has a good solid 4 years left in him. Now, I don't think he'll have the same chance next year specifically because next year Rick Barnes is losing Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshack. Those are 2 4-year guys that he thoroughly, fully developed in the system. He's not going to have any seniors next year that he developed over a 4-year period unless Zakai Ziegler gets another year of eligibility, which I don't see happening. So I think Rick Barnes is just he's out of luck on that one. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's his last chance. He's got Felix Okpara, he's got Bishop Boswell. Those two guys could be in the program 2 more years. And then you're talking in a couple of years, also JP Estrella and Cade Phillips are in the program, could be in there for a couple more years. So you factor those 4 players in, you could look 2 years down the road. And once again, Rick Barnes has 3 guys that have played for him for 4 years and another Okpara who played for him for 3 years, not to mention the new talent he could have, because we're forgetting this. In this era of transfer portal basketball and NIL, it actually, and I've written this a lot, even though Rick Barnes is 70, I said he's going on 50. It favors what he wants to do. He likes to develop players. So now he can go, rather than the one and done 5-star route, he can go the route of finding a one and done transfer who has 1 year of eligibility left, who just needs to develop that last little bit of his game to try to become an NBA player. And he's going to fully buy into Rick Barnes' coaching, which, as you know, Dave, a 5-star freshman that's a lottery pick is not going to do. Why would they accept being coached hard in college when they know that they don't even think they should be in college for this year?
You mentioned 4 players that could be long-time guys, and you pretty much said this with your statement earlier. Rick Barnes has to coach 2 or 3 more or 4 years for you to be right? I mean, he's not going to replace Ziegler and Jemai next season and have as good of a basketball team. So you're pretty much saying by your prediction that it's going to be 4 years. I will go ahead and make a prediction that out of those 4 key players you mentioned, at least 1 transfers, just because that's the nature of the sport. I don't have any intel. I don't have any inside information, but that would be my concern. The one thing I don't want to see Rick Barnes do is hang on too long. I think this team is perfectly made in his image. Zakai Ziegler is perfectly made in his image. And I want to see what happens this year. And if he stays and he makes another Final Four, great. I'm rooting for Rick Barnes because he's a great person. I don't typically I'm pretty objective, but I'm a little subjective with him. I want good things to happen to him, and hit like if you agree with that, and make sure you're subscribed. But Caleb, that being said, I think if he doesn't make the Final Four this season, I think the most likely scenario, as much as I hate to say it, is that he never makes the Final Four, coaches 3 or 4 more years, and you look back at his tenure at Tennessee and you say, yeah, man, he had that one really good run where he got to a couple of Elite Eights, couldn't get past Purdue and possibly Houston, but then he fell off at the end of his career, maybe hung on too long. That's worst case scenario for his legacy, correct?
Yeah, but that's a pretty good worst case scenario for the record. There's been and
right, if he were to make a couple more Sweet 16s, there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, and I guess the where I'm landing on this is that, okay, let's say 1 transfers. So he has 2 to 3 guys that are in his system for 3-4 years. Dave, let's think about a starting lineup this year, just this year.
Yes.
3 of the starters are their first year playing for him and their transfers. That's how quickly true. Rick Barnes can reload.
Okay, I agree with you that if he wants to, he can. Assuming that, physically he's all good. General Ursa says, I believe this is his last chance. Plus, he was contemplating retirement last year. You have to factor that in as well. I was told by a source in the room he was very, very close to hanging it up last year.
Yeah, and then I've heard that he kind of all but admitted that because he basically said Zakai Ziegler kept him out of retirement. He said coaching a guy like Zakai is why you don't want to retire, was his exact comments. But at the same time, I think if he wanted to, he could still hang around. I mean, again, Rick Barnes, Dave, you're really underestimating how easy it is to reload through the transfer portal now in basketball, particularly with a coach like Rick Barnes. I mean, he could get 5. Are we really putting it beyond a team in the near future to go get 5 transfers and go win a national title with 5 transfers?
I think that's a little heavy. I think that's a little rich. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you saw this year Tennessee try to plug in 3 transfers.
And it's worked.
I don't know that Darlington Dubar has worked.
Well, no, that's not who No, the 3 transfers are Igor Milicic, Felix Okpara, and Chaz Lanier.
Well, yeah, but you have to factor Dubar somewhere in there, correct?
Yes, but you said 3. And when I said 3, the 3 that they tried to plug 4, but they got 3 to work out.
Well, that kind of undermines your point that you can go out there and get 5. I think it's a supplemental thing. I don't think you can build a team around the transfer portal, can you?
I mean, look, John Calipari has a national championship on his record from building a team around one and done 5 stars. If you can do it around one and done 5-star freshmen, why can't you do it around senior laden transfers?
All right. What's our poll question? Let me think about that, and I may retort. But our poll question is what?
We're going to say, is this Rick Barnes' last chance for a Final Four? 53% say yes. It's all. Sorry, I'm not trying to tease.
Wait, the number. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. Banks & Jones. All right, so what's our poll question again, Caleb? And you can give the results if you don't mind.
Is this Rick Barnes' last chance at a Final Four? Man, they are going at each other. It's close. Now 52% say no, he's got time, even at 70. 48% say yes, it's all lined up. I'm with the 52%. And also, does Rick Barnes really want to go out knowing that he had a title caliber team, but he just got hit with a bad break of JP Estrella's injury and Cameron Carr transferring? Like, honestly, and I just want to throw this out there. If those two things don't happen,
I would lump that together with facing a generational type of college basketball talent last year in Zach Edey. I mean, he's not going to be great in the NBA, but that guy was a tough out for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, no. What I was talking about though specifically was this year with where was that? Oh yeah, with JP Estrella going down and Cameron Carr transferring, and Danielson and Dubar having a personal family issue. Dave, I mean, Rick Barnes has the number 2 seed in line to go to potentially the Final Four, with 3 players not working out for him the way he anticipated at the beginning of the year.
No,
like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I just wonder how much longer he wants to do it. When you look at guys that have retired early, and David pointed this out, Jay Wright, Tony Bennett. I don't know that Bennett was early. Jim Larinaga. I mean, at some point you get tired of this, especially if you don't have Zakai, your main guy right there with you, your Spock to your Captain Kirk.
Well, Tony, the people that were just named, they've always been guys that specifically want 3 to 4 year guys. So I don't think Rick Barnes has ever been somebody opposed to having 3 to 4 year guys. 3 to 4 year guys work best under him. But I think this was Rick Barnes' flaw, even when he was at Texas. One of the things that held him back, Dave, was he was willing to recruit 5-star one and dones. And I don't think he accepted the fact that he's not a good fit for 5-star one and dones. And they're not a good fit for him because they don't want to be coached hard in college.
No,
at all.
Those guys, those Calipari teams for Kentucky, I mean, they just look like they were, I don't know, stoned on Xanax or something. Their body language all around off the court was just awful.
It was like, just to point out, Dave, who were we kidding with the new one and done rule that these kids need a year of college experience before the NBA? For who? It's not like these kids actually went to class. It's not like they cared about being in college. You know, they were all looking like, why are we here for a year?
Yes. Dylan says calling Edey generational is a stretch. I don't think so with the way I phrased it. It's a generational talent in college basketball, not a basketball generational talent. There are, 320 Division I teams in college basketball, something like that. 300 would have a tough time stopping Zach Edey.
Yeah, there's plenty of generational college basketball players that aren't great in the NBA. I mean, Christian Laettner's a generational college basketball player. Bill Walton may be the greatest college basketball player of all time, right?
Yes.
I mean, now I don't think he probably could have been a Hall of Famer in the NBA had he stayed healthy. He may still be, I don't know, but like he was never like, no one's going to accuse Bill Walton of being a top 30 NBA player. He's the greatest college basketball player of all time.
Yeah. I want to reset the poll question, and it's based off of this to some extent. As Daniel says, Rick is chill and relaxed. I think he's our coach another 2 or 3 years and will have us balling until he goes. He's made a good job for the next coach. Tennessee is now a better job than before. Very true. Let me ask you this, though, Caleb. If you had a bet, I'm going to go to extremes. I think extremes is a great way to prove a point or lack of a point. So I'm going to ask you this. Rick Barnes is more likely to retire after this season or coach 5 more years?
I'm going to go 5. I'm gonna go 5.
I would have to go retire this year.
I think Rick Barnes is 70 going on 50. I think he's younger than like we talk about this Rick Barnes versus Bruce Pearl all the time. I still think Rick Barnes could outlast Bruce Pearl. I think he's in better shape.
No, he is. I will tell you this though. The older you get, and you'll find this at some point, when something goes wrong, it's not just a bounce back sort of thing. So if something were to go wrong with Rick's health, and I hope that's not the case, it could mean he decides to cruise on, right? Things that go wrong when you're 70 plus tend to go wronger, that's not a word, than when you're 20, right?
Yes, but okay,
Have you started to witness any of that just in your mid 30s? Because I can tell you at 51, recovery is a different thing.
Not really yet. I will say that. The only thing I've really witnessed now is when I work out, I actually have to stretch more than I used to have to stretch. That's about it. Like I barely stretched the next time I worked out, and I was fine. And now I'm like, if I don't stretch, I'm tight the next day.
Wait till you get 50 plus.
Well, okay. So one thing, but here's the other part about Rick Barnes. I mean, I want to bring his faith into it real quick. Look, he just got that guy Troy Henderson, the point guard. Will West told us this is something he was thinking last Friday when Will West was telling us about some things in Rick Barnes' mind. Dave, I think Rick Barnes genuinely believes it's his calling to develop players like Zakai Ziegler and Troy Henderson. He believes like that's literally what God wants him to do.
I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah,
I do. I think more so than winning a Final Four, the development of his players is what gets him up in the morning, day in, day out.
I agree. And seeing them develop not just as players, but as people and just what they become. I think there's nothing that makes Rick Barnes happier than seeing what his players that he coached are after they've left. That's what he cares about the most.
Right.
And
now to the Troy Henderson point, it's a 3-star guy that was going to Fordham. I mean, that's not a major pickup. It's not like he just picked up Allen Iverson.
No, he just picked up Zakai. What was Zakai Ziegler? A reclassified, unrated recruit that nobody saw coming out of anywhere.
All
like
right.
that's who Rick Barnes likes to coach.
Dylan says we're wishing nobody's going to turn down Allen Iverson, though. If Allen Iverson
Rick Barnes never turned down 5-star recruits.
Okay.
And by the way,
yes.
I think Rick Barnes actually would have been great for Allen Iverson, too. But that's a different story.
Dylan says we're wishing upon a star trying to get Barnes to stay 5 years. He had pretty good coaching at Georgetown, though. I wouldn't say that he didn't. Vols win says if he gets to the Final Four or wins a natty, he's out. Let's address that really quick. Do the results matter in his decision? I really don't think they do.
I don't think they do. Rick Barnes is in it for the results. Like, you got to deliver results for the university, but he's in it because he likes coaching, guys. He likes teaching. He likes developing. He reminds me of, I've told you this before, Dave. He reminds me of David Cutcliffe for basketball. You were around David Cutcliffe a lot. If it wasn't for his health, he'd still be coaching, wouldn't he? And David Cutcliffe, I'll never forget doing an interview with him one time. You know, most offensive coordinators and coaches, they talk about like the amazing play they dialed up here. You told me that Fulmer still talks about that one play he dialed up as his first year as offensive coordinator, right? In 89.
Yes.
And they love to do that. And I'll never forget talking to David Cutcliffe. And he said, and he was just kind of asked, like, what's your favorite part about coaching? And he said, I love practice. I love it. I love everything about practice. Like, he loves it more than the game. He loved it more than X's and O's. He loved working. Am I right on this, Dave, that David Cutcliffe loved working with people in practice more than anything else?
Yes. Yep. Let's go with a pick one. So it's pick one. You have to pick one. Rick Barnes will retire after the season or coach 5 more years. Let's change the poll question. David says Ja Morant was a 0-star with South Carolina as his major offer. Dave, he went to Murray State, same level as Fordham. I'm not saying that couldn't happen.
He really shot up, didn't he?
Yeah, it's good because he's got guns. So that's the rarity, right? No, nobody's thinking Troy Henderson's going to be Ja Morant.
Yeah, no. I mean, Ja Morant, Steph Curry, like, guys, it's recruiting in basketball is like football. Look at the NBA. Most of the kids were 5-stars or European superstars. One of the two.
Well, you can also grow. I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew 2 inches after high school. So,
and that's actually
2 inches tall, by the way. Go ahead and plug that question in.
Okay. Anyways, here's what benefits Rick Barnes the most, and this is the truth. Like you just said, this is what happened with Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier grew like how many inches, and that's when he got signed by Tennessee. transfer portal era allows people who are stars at smaller colleges that didn't get recruited to top colleges out of high school to then spend 1 year after they hit their growth spurt in college to go play at a big time school. Does that make sense? Yep. And Rick Barnes is the type of coach that's going to get those guys because they know Rick Barnes will help develop them the most of anybody that they signed with. So
go ahead.
If this was at 1988, Rick Barnes would have gotten Scottie Pippen out of Central Arkansas before he went to the Bulls. He'd have gotten a year out of Scottie Pippen.
Okay, that seems like a leap, but it's not a leap to know that it's the final weekend of Truck Month. Ted Russell Ford, East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer, 69 brand new 2025s ready to roll in with special pricing and exclusive financing offers. Now through Monday at 8 o'clock, dealing on every single truck, the F-150, Super Duty, and more. Special financing available. They got to clear the lot. You got to get to Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike, as I want to get into this whole who's going to start in the slot for Tennessee, because Caleb is so in love with Boo Carter, it's a little disturbing. First, a message from Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or
Your Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
David pointing out that CJ Watson was a 3-star. He was. I bet that dude put on 30 pounds of muscle at Tennessee. He came in gangly and skinny and left like an Adonis. I mean, I just don't think most players develop like that. I did. I grew 2 inches after high school, so I would have been a much better prospect in the middle of my college career than I was coming out of high school. So I get it. It can happen. I just don't think it's the norm.
Well, and also we're forgetting CJ Watson didn't develop for 3 years. He was an average point guard for 3 years because Buzz Peterson didn't know how to coach him. And then Bruce Pearl came, and there is no player ever that benefited from a coach the way CJ Watson benefited from Bruce Pearl for a year. What Bruce Pearl did for CJ was amazing.
I'm sorry about that. Did you get a little music in your ear? Caleb, I know who you think is going to be Tennessee's starting slot receiver. I'm going to tell you why it's not going to be Boo Carter. I'm sorry to bring everybody down. I will go ahead and share that with you right now. Listen, guys, it just doesn't happen. Mark Jones would be the closest example of that. And there's a story on offthehooksports.com right now if you would like to read it. And Caleb, if you can pull up, I found Mark Jones's numbers earlier today. If you want to share his stats and what he was able to do, we'll go ahead and dive into 4 downs right now. And it's brought to you by Double D Piping.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count? 4 downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, 4 downs now. Let's take a look at the candidates for the slot receiver position. And I shared my thoughts on Boo Carter and why he won't have a major impact just because historically it doesn't happen. He'll have somewhat of an impact, especially in goal line. But Caleb, I know you feel much differently about it. So share, please.
Are we playing 4 downs or hot or cold?
We're playing 4 downs. Just
I
move
was
forward.
confused. Okay, sorry.
All right, you can hit.
So you want me to ask about why Boo Carter, I think, will take over the position, or you want me to give you Mark Jones' numbers right now? Because I can do both, and I think Boo Carter could easily match Mark Jones.
All right,
In a
let's do
heartbeat.
that. Who remembers Mark Jones? Caleb did. I covered him and barely remember, but here we go.
Mark Jones had 36 catches for 556 yards and 5 touchdowns. He had 20 punt returns, averaged 15 yards a punt return, and had a punt return touchdown his senior year. He had 2 interceptions his senior year. Also was sent on a blitz that forced the Brock Berlin interception to Jabril Wilson to seal Tennessee's win at Miami that was 10-6. Mark Jones was a do-everything player. And if he had played on Michigan in 1997, he'd have been a Heisman finalist.
Okay, let's dive into this now. As Cooper Mays is not open in a smokehouse, he's going to the NFL despite the Facebook rumor to the contrary. Let's go ahead and get Coop's thoughts as we'll go into 4 downs right now, brought to you by Double D Piping.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop. We'll do that. All right.
Coop here. First down.
All right. First down is this. Braylon Staley will be Tennessee's starter at the slot position. That's where I am. I think that Boo Carter is a 10 to 20% supplement at best at that position. In other words, he plays 10 to 20% of the snaps total at the slot receiver position.
Okay, so Braylon Staley is making rounds in spring ball, and Patrick Brown of 247 basically has a report out right now that Braylon Staley has reportedly shot up as Tennessee's new top slot receiver. I think that was always the plan for Josh Heupel and company, wasn't it? Was that Braylon Staley would step in eventually and be the top slot receiver because he was a phenom out of South Carolina. They see him as their next Jalen Hyatt. So I see all of that. If my theory doesn't come true, Braylon Staley will be the starting slot receiver. Just no questions asked. That's a clear as day fact.
Okay. So start in the slot. We'll ask you that, and we'll get to second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Okay. Now, this one doesn't need a takeoff because this is unfair to the young man. I remind you that First Down brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. It's right down below. Follow them on Facebook. It's asking a lot for Amari Jefferson to step in and play this season for 3 different reasons. 1, a transfer is a transfer, right, Caleb? There's always a challenge in learning a new playbook.
Yep. Nope. Totally agree with that.
Not that you can't overcome it. 2, Josh Heupel just doesn't play these cats in their first year. So I'm sorry. You can get excited about Amari Jefferson all you want to. And this would speak to Boo to some extent as well. But the likelihood based off recent history is that a first-year player is not going to have an impact. That's why I think Mike Matthews will have a huge, huge impact. And the third factor is this. He's got a hip injury, man. He's not around for spring camp. He's going to be limited in the summer. His target date is preseason camp. There is no way you can miss, especially at receiver, quarterback, defensive back. Those summer workouts are so big for them, Caleb. It's just like missing 2 spring practices, if not more. When I say 2 spring practices, I mean the entire camp. Does that make sense?
Right. Particularly in Josh Heupel's system where you have to develop a level of chemistry with the quarterback that most receivers don't have to develop. And so I'm sorry, he's just not going to be there as a contributor this year. We can talk 2026. The good news for him in 2026 is he'll have multiple options because he'll be able to work his way back into the rotation. And there's a chance he plays wide out instead of in the slot. So we'll just see how that goes. He can play both.
I don't see him playing that. He feels like a slot to me.
He can be a smaller wideout. He's able to kind of win those physical battles. And I mean, I don't think there are some systems. I know like what Hugh Freeze does, like he likes to have like all like 6'4", 6'5" guys at receiver on the outside. I don't think Josh Heupel has a requirement that his wideouts be tall, does he? That's not as significant for him.
No, but it's just natural. You know, they're going to be throwing more deep balls. You would like them to win jump ball battles. So I just think it's natural for any football team, really. Second down was brought to you by Quality Tire Pro, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. Stop by and tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said, hello, Bo. David with a comment as we go to the message board early and often. Staley could be a Josh Palmer similar to Jawan and Marquez Callaway was. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you think I'm wrong. I would have, out of that group, Jennings 1, Callaway 2, Palmer 3. Where would you put Staley potentially in that trio? I don't think he's as good as Jennings.
No, he's not. He's not as good as
fair comparison.
No, he's not as good as Jennings. And I mean, none of these comparisons work because to me, it's hard because Josh Palmer, Jawan Jennings, Marquez Callaway, Dave, what was interesting about that trio in 2019, that was 3 wideouts. And Josh Palmer just played in the slot because he was so good and they had to put him somewhere. But, but Palmer was more of a natural wideout. And he moved over to wideout the next year, him and Brandon Johnson. That was a bad 2020 team. Again, not their fault. But so
it was like,
I'm sorry.
Fauci did it.
Yes, Fauci did it. Fauci had a secret agenda to derail Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt should sue Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, all right, here we go.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Okay, so third down is this. You've got Boo Carter as a starter. So do you have him the starter from week 1, or does it take him a little bit to work his way into the system? Where do you stand on that?
Man, I don't back down. Week 1, baby. Boo Carter is stepping in. Actually, no, I don't have him. Yeah, no, week 1. They're playing Syracuse. They got to get that win. They got to get that dub. Boo Carter, week 1. By the way, Dave, I'll tell you this, actually. It's more likely Boo Carter starts, if Boo Carter does make an impact in the slot, like, it's more likely he starts in week 1 and then falls off during SEC play than the other way around. Because wouldn't Josh Heupel, if he was going to use Boo Carter, want to make them have to prepare for him?
Well, but you do have Georgia in the first month of the season, which is
so but that's why you might start Boo Carter against Syracuse. Make Georgia have to prepare for that wrinkle.
Third down brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. A Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. This is where everybody on the message board is going to get really mad at me. Because I'm going to go ahead and share the God's honest truth with you. This is not about Boo Carter being special. This is about Tennessee not being as talent-filled on their roster as they should be.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
How troubling is that, Caleb, that you have Josh Heupel going into his 5th season and you're talking about the massive amounts of replacements they're going to have at receiver and the skill positions? Is that troublesome? Because I think the Boo Carter thing is more about they want to placate him. They perhaps even need him because they don't completely trust Staley. Maybe Staley's changing that in spring camp. But I think it's more about that than they think he's a special, super crazy talent. You?
I think it's placating him too, but I don't think it's troubling about the lack of depth at receiver or wideout. I think it would be more troubling about the lack of depth in the secondary on the other side, or that Boo Carter is just such a rare talent. I think Braylon Staley is more than ready to step in the slot. I think the problem they have is Braylon Staley's so good, but Boo Carter can play it, but they got to placate Boo Carter. And so they're kind of thinking, who do we placate more, Boo Carter or Braylon? But then they're like, if we placate him, maybe Braylon Staley would transfer at the end of the year because Braylon Staley is like, I'm the best slot receiver and I'm not getting playing time because of this other kid's demands.
Yep.
So there are chemistry problems that they probably have to manage. But at the same time, I'm sorry, and I keep going back to this. I don't think there's a better player on the team with the ball in his hands than Boo Carter. I'm talking like Cordarrelle Patterson style from 2012 at Tennessee.
It's pretty good. Nathaniel says, don't think that's crazy. The turnover has been huge. Getting to my point about Tennessee's roster isn't where I thought it would be heading in to week 5. General Ursa says, Boo's got endless amount of talent. I'm not worried about him. I'm more worried about Matthews and these other receivers stepping up. I want to get an update on the poll question, Caleb, which might be a little bit of a recall. But first, I want you to think about this. Who do you have more confidence in this upcoming season? Is it Boo Carter or Mike Matthews? Because if the answer is what I think it is, then there's trouble in Rocky Top. There's trouble. 4 downs brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in.
All right, let me get your take on that, Caleb. Who do you have more faith in? I have a ton of faith in Mike Matthews. I think he's going to be the breakout player on Tennessee's football team from the people I've talked to. And I have very little faith in the dedication to play boo. So mine's a slam dunk. Mine's easy. Doesn't mean it's right, but in my mind, it's right and it's easy.
And we're talking just on offense, right? Like,
yes,
we're not asking. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I even I have more faith in Mike Matthews, but that's because I think Mike Matthews is a generational talent at receiver. I told you guys that I think he's like, the plan was always for this Nico Mike Matthews duo to be all world shattering this year. And, you know, last year, I think the problem with Nico was, we talked about the tackles, but they were really underrating the fact that Tennessee's go-to wideout, Josh Heupel, stayed loyal to Brew McCoy. And no matter what you think about him personally, he just didn't have, his injury held him back last year, and he couldn't stretch the field the way they needed him to. And so Mike Matthews, by the way, I even thought last year that Mike Matthews would eventually be better than Brew McCoy. So now that he's in there, I feel, look, I might have been just a little bit ahead of the curve, guys. I'm just saying, maybe I was just too far ahead when I said the Nico lab situation, created in a lab to run the offense. Maybe that shows up this year with Mike Matthews able to stretch the field. Okay, I'm basically the XFL when they did the Skycam in 2001 and then they folded, but then the NFL does the Skycam like 6 years later and decides they like that. Like I'm basic. I screwed up last year because I was too far ahead of my time.
That's great. So what's the poll question before we get to this day in Tennessee sports history?
What's more likely? Rick Barnes retires after this year. Rick Barnes stays 5 years.
Okay.
Would you like the answer?
I would. Let me remind people first that portions of the program are brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com. JoeNewbertCollision.com. What do you got?
You want this day in Tennessee history?
No. I want the answer to the poll question. We don't
sorry. The results. 58% are on my side. Rick Barnes stays 5 years. 42% are on your side. Rick Barnes retires after this year.
Okay. Let's change that up a little bit if we can. Who do you have more faith in, Mike Matthews or Boo Carter? I'm really interested to see where that goes because I think the Boo stuff is getting a little out of control. It is time for this day in Tennessee sports history, brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Recently renovated, easy to get around, the best choice of Tennessee apparel you can imagine. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. HDKnoxville.com. This day in Tennessee sports history.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history. What do you got?
On this day in Tennessee sports history, 10 years ago today, we talked about him yesterday. Tennessee fired Donnie Tyndall after 1 year of him on the job. And Dave Hart, to his credit, stood in front of a press conference and you felt like you knew he didn't want to be there, but he answered every single question that was asked of him that day. And he basically said, I'll stand here as long as you need. He took full responsibility for what happened. But yeah, it was kind of a really crazy time for that. It's what led to the hiring of Rick Barnes. And for the record, we talked about it yesterday. Donnie Tyndall did not get the McNeese State job. Somebody else got it. But yes, Tennessee fired Donnie Tyndall 10 years ago. And I still wonder to this day what happens with the program if Donnie Tyndall doesn't have that academic fraud scandal. Because, I mean, again, as a tactician, I don't think there were many better coaches that have ever been hired in any sport at Tennessee than Donnie Tyndall.
Nah, I think he's pretty solid too. And I know people don't want to hear that. Now they got Rick Barnes. So maybe you give up a little bit from a schematic standpoint, but from a stability standpoint
and a development standpoint,
I mean, you're taking Rick Barnes easy all day long, right?
Yeah. Rick Barnes coaches up his players for the pros. very well. And develops them and completes their games. I don't know how much Donnie does that per se. Again, as a tactician, you're not going to do it as much, particularly with Donnie Tyndall again, his defense is a matchup zone. His primary defense was pressing on every made basket and a matchup zone. Dave, if you're developing guys for the NBA, two things the NBA doesn't do: press and play matchup zone, because they would get torched by the offenses if they ever tried that.
Unsung says, why is Dave trying so hard to create a divisive scenario that if Boo does well, our other guys will be bad?
Yeah, Dave, why are you doing that?
Because that's what I think.
Dave hates Tennessee guys. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, if Boo Carter is a superstar, then it means Braylon Staley couldn't hold him off, and he's been playing receiver since he arrived at Tennessee. Boo Carter's been playing everything and they need him on defense. Listen, if Boo Carter's your leading receiver, Caleb, and you and I disagree whether or not he will be, but there's a problem. If Boo Carter is able to find his way into the lineup, it means one of two things happen. One, he managed the scenario to his liking, or two, Tennessee doesn't have enough talent at the receiver position. Guys, I don't think that's a stretch at all. Nathaniel says, I think it's more bad for the state of the program if our best receiver is a defensive player. Thank you very much. And people want to make a comparison with Travis Hunter at Colorado. Guys, that really was a generational talent. He's being talked about by NFL scouts as a potential NFL Hall of Famer already.
I don't think it'll be Travis Hunter, because I don't think Josh Heupel would want to use him that much. You're right. And also, again, I think Deion Sanders, there was a push to make Travis Hunter do that more than actually win games. I told you guys it very much reminded me of the McGuire home run chase in '98 when the Cardinals weren't in contention for anything, but they kept pushing Mark McGuire out there, marketing McGuire with Big Mac Land and all that for the home run chase, even though they finished like 73 and 89. No one ever pays attention to that during the summer of the state baseball.
Yeah, they pumped him up a little bit. There's no question that his rushing touchdown was just a way to check off that one last box. So they had kick return, punt return, reception, carry. What am I missing?
Oh, yeah, they wanted to give him like all types of touchdowns. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was totally manufactured. That speaks exactly to your point. That was totally manufactured and orchestrated.
Yeah. It's actually very similar to 2007, the Patriots team that went undefeated, that had a Michigan going undefeated. They clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC, but they play the last week, and Bill Belichick calls 2 fades on the goal line because he wants Tom Brady to break Peyton Manning's record. That was very clear.
T. Martin at South Carolina throwing every screen and flat pass known to man to get to 22 consecutive completions. I mean, for the love of goodness.
Yes, but his first 10 completions, go back and look at those. Those were tough.
His first 10 were fine, but when they realized he was pushing the record, it was all pomp and circumstance.
Well, he was pushing the record and the game was in hand, so they could do it.
Right. If I'm South Carolina, I'm still upset about that.
Well, the fans, the South Carolina fans were clapping when he did it. Like they were 1-10. What else were they going to do, Dave? Like at least they got to witness some history.
What a bunch of losers. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. 2 minutes, then we dive into, is this the greatest Tennessee sports year ever? It deserves to be in the conversation no matter what happens with the spring sports moving forward. 2 minutes off the hook sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, Life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Here we go.
This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Give us that poll question, Caleb. What do we got?
Who do you have more faith in offensively? Mike Matthews or Boo Carter?
All right, we'll get to the answer to that after I tell you. Portions of the program are brought to you by Work Trucks. All about trucks, right truck, right place. Work Trucks actually has your vehicle available now. Trucks that help you maximize your profit by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks pass the highest standards to be put to work. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app, how to work bodies installed. Pickup trucks of all sizes. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. You can check out the entire inventory. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Perfect truck, outfit it, can't waste time. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. What do you got, Caleb?
So who do you have more faith in offensively? It's 70% are saying Mike Matthews, 30% are saying Boo Carter. I mean, I agree as much as I have faith in Boo Carter. Mike Matthews is going to be the go-to receiver in this offense.
It's not. There's a big problem.
Yes. Then the talent evaluation is looking really bad for Josh Heupel and company, but not just Josh Heupel and company, recruiting services. Okay, because they were like Mike Matthews and David Sanders and Nico Iamaleava. Like, if Tennessee missed on all three of these guys, then I think 247 Sports and On 3 may need to reevaluate their rankings.
Just go back and check them year to year. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they
I mean, I know
they really don't. I never crossed that divide, so to speak. I was a reporter. I reported what they said. Did I have my opinions on whether or not they were elite players or not? Sure, I did. But I didn't spend 20 years in the coaching world, and neither did they. So they shouldn't be even making those calls.
No, but I mean, there is data to back it up. Like there was like typically like it's you have to have like 3 top 5 classes in 4 years if you're going to win a national title. There were data points for that for years.
Well, again, though, you and I could do that though, because you and I know the 5 stars and the 1 stars. So we're not gonna.
Well, what the On 3 people do though, I wouldn't say they evaluate the talent themselves. Don't they usually talk to assistant coaches and who they're all going after and things like that and scouts, and then that's kind of how they get their ratings? I don't think they're like watching these high school kids play and developing the ratings.
No, there are a couple of Tom Luganbills out there that actually do their own evaluations, but they're incompetent. So I wouldn't go by those. Now, you bring up a good point. If Alabama in its heyday under Nick Saban offers a kid, you should probably perk up and pay attention. Now, you have to take that with a grain of salt because these coaches are also going to lie about players. Butch Jones was the most notorious that I'd ever heard of. And he demanded a guy get an extra star because Tennessee went out and got him. That to me is the flip side, is that this just in. Coaches lie.
Well, and also Butch Jones is like the epitome of everything that's wrong with a football coach.
He's the gold standard of lying. Is that fair?
Yes.
And manipulation. He's the gold standard of maniacal manipulation.
Lying, manipulation, overselling his record, which
bullying. Mm-hmm. How about that?
And by the way, let's point this out. Like, look, he was a good coach, successful. He didn't go near to the level of Butch Jones. It's not like when you talk to Phil Fulmer, he doesn't oversell his record every now and then.
Oh, he definitely does. And he always reminds you that the first play he called as offensive coordinator was a deep touchdown pass, and he's not just a running guy. Sure, everybody likes to control the narrative. Daniel, clarification here. This got confusing yesterday. Dave or anyone that knows, is Tony Jones preaching? No, Tony goes to Severe Heights and invited me, so I went to Severe Heights. I would highly recommend it because they have a fantastic pastor. But Tony Jones is not a preacher. He works with special education men, and he does a great job and as a member of our society, but he's not a pastor. That got confusing in the message board, and I didn't
He's got a pastor's voice, so that's where it comes from. You know, very. By the way, speaking of that, I just picked up Righteous.
I like talking. Tony Jones. He's all smooth and stuff.
By the way, speaking of coaches and pastors, we can joke about this, but I just started watching Righteous Gemstones this week. Do you watch that show?
No, it's on the short list of ones that I definitely want to get into.
Oh my gosh, it's like basically makes fun of the whole Jim and Tammy Baker culture scene in the 80s, you know what I mean? And like just like a total like this is what megachurch pastors are really like, you know, shoving money in behind their gold toilets like Joel Osteen was doing.
I don't know how you got there. Are you ripping Severe Heights now? I had a fantastic time.
Severe Heights isn't a megachurch, is it? Okay. I don't think it is. No.
It's pretty big. Pretty big. I don't know.
No, I'm talking about these megachurch conglomerate like businesses, basically.
I was a part of a church that I thought got too big, to be real honest with you. And I'm usually a capitalist guy, even when it comes to religion. But I just thought that they were. Yeesh.
I feel like once the pastor rolls up in a Lambo, I'm like, okay, you know what?
That's hot.
I'm not so sure Jesus wants you rolling up in a Lambo.
Probably not. All right. Tennessee has had one of its best years in terms of athletics in the history of the program. We'll break that down now. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Which seasons compare? We dive in now.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, let's look at this season first of all.
I got a lot more seasons, by the way, that I thought of.
Okay, give us this season, and are you hot or cold that it should be considered among the greatest seasons of all time? You have a baseball team that's going to make the College World Series more than likely. So let's go ahead and say that's the kind of the base minimum of what the baseball team's going to do.
Base minimum.
Yes. You have a Tennessee team that made the college football playoffs. You have two basketball teams that are in the Sweet 16. The Lady Vols softball program is going well. Does this deserve to be in the conversation of best athletics year ever?
It does. And by the way, the Lady Vols softball program, I believe, what's the lady's name? Caroline Pickens. She might be the best player in softball. This year. So
you're gonna say that's hot?
Yeah, I'm hot. I'm hot on this.
That's hot.
I mean, we're not even done with. We're judging these like 4 of the 5 major sports we're talking about aren't even done yet. And there's already accomplishments that are just really, really incredible. So I'm hot on this being in the conversation, but it ain't the best, but we'll get to the best.
Okay. The next one up is,
I need to reroute real quick.
Okay. You reorder. Cause I think you put the best one at the top.
Well, yeah, we'll get to those, but let's go last year. Let's just start last year real quick. Men's basketball won the SEC regular season outright, made the Elite Eight. Baseball won the national title. Football still went 9-4 and finished in the top 25. The Lady Vols made it to the second round.
No.
So football.
I never thought football was a championship contender. That was the issue.
Okay. So cold.
Like you at least have to be in the conversation. And they were last year. This year. You know what I'm saying? The 2024-25 year.
Yeah.
So I can roll with you on that, but I didn't think they had any chance. And I wouldn't even include 2022, as crazy as that sounds, because the loss at South Carolina was so embarrassing. Listen, the loss against South Carolina in football could offset an Elite Eight run in my mind, because football carries so much of the weight at Tennessee.
Yeah, but that's not fair, because we're going to give 2024-25 like kudos, but 2022-23, the one you're talking about where football lost to South Carolina, they went 11-2 and finished in the top 10. And Dave, you're forgetting, like, That team goes to a college football playoff if it's 12 teams like it was this past year. And this team this past year does not go to a college football playoff if it's 4 teams like it was in 2022-23.
But without Hendon Hooker, they're not going to win jack.
So Hendon Hooker was there.
I mean, you're talking about,
okay, wait, they're not going to win jack. They didn't win jack this year in the college football playoff.
Okay, without Hendon Hooker, I never thought they were championship contenders. I never thought they were championship contenders.
But I don't think you can put 20, okay, you're saying 2024, 2025 is in the running, but 2022, 2023 is not. I don't see how you could draw any distinction between the football programs those 2 years.
Because I thought Tennessee had a significantly better chance to advance this past year than they did without Hendon Hooker or with Joe Milton at the helm.
But, okay, yes, but that's still Hendon Hooker was there for most of the season. That was a fluke injury. You kind of have to take the whole season in its conglomerate. Do you think this Tennessee team this past year beats that 2022 Alabama team?
Again, end of the season is when you have the playoffs.
Yes, but you got it with football. You particularly in a 14 playoff, you have to judge the whole season in a conglomerate. You can't just go straight by the playoffs.
Okay, I am. Daniel says
this is the problem. This is why college football is going to die because people like Dave gave up the regular season.
Overall, no, I'm talking about the regular season at South Carolina.
You're saying yes, but no, you're saying I don't think they would have done anything in the playoffs without Hendon Hooker, as if the win over Alabama doesn't count for anything that year.
No, not really. Daniel says overall last 2 years, best all around sports in my 42 years. That's pretty strong. All right. Now,
Nathaniel Kim in South Carolina cheated.
Yeah, somebody's ripping me. What's ridiculous, Elijah? Help me with that because I'm not sure what that is.
That you're putting the 2024 football team on a pedestal above the 2022 football team.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Listen, if Dylan Sampson doesn't get hurt and that's a gut punch to Tennessee as one of their leaders, do you not think that they're in that game?
See, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. In 2024, you're defending Tennessee to say if Dylan Sampson doesn't get hurt. But then in 2022, you're saying I can't count Tennessee because Hendon Hooker got hurt. Well, which one is it? Well, why can't I say if Hendon Hooker got hurt?
I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth because here's what happens. You roll into those 2022 playoffs if you make it, if it's a 12-team playoff. And I think without Hendon Hooker, you have zero chance to advance. Now, what happened during a game is different. I thought Tennessee had a chance to advance, making the college football playoff. And you have to give me this. The publicity, even though it was a different format, makes the 2024 season more successful than 2022, just to getting the publicity for the program.
I don't know if I can go there. I think honestly, and I bet if I did a poll question, what was a better year, 2022 or 2024? I bet most of our people would say 2022. You want to bet?
Okay, here's where Elijah thinks I'm crazy, and I want to address that. And maybe it was a little strong. Can I change it up, Elijah, and see if you agree with me? Saying that one loss in football takes away from an entire season of an Elite Eight run and winning the SEC regular season title in basketball. Can I change it to this? A Sweet 16 run. So would you rather have the South Carolina win if you could go back and rewrite history, or would you rather have a Sweet 16 run?
And for the record, they did have a Sweet 16 run that year, and they got bounced out in the Sweet 16. And if I'm Tennessee, I would rather they had lost in the round of 32 and they beat South Carolina. Not even a question. Not even a question, okay? And by the way, South Carolina, as we keep pointing out, we have to point this out, Dave, because you're bringing up the Dylan Sampson injury. South Carolina cheated. They cheated.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Let's go ahead and put on our poll question the top seasons. Kind of go recent here if we can. I know you go back to the 50s. Good Lord. But let's...
I'm going to have this, 2022 or 2024. What was a better Tennessee football season? Because Dave's trying to say...
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
We have a new daily comment now. Nathaniel says, pull that. All right, so
pull that. You should
right
get
now.
An elevator for that. Pull that. Pull that.
Better season 2022 or 2024 for Tennessee's football team. Now, Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Let's take a look at some of the other years. It's so weird to say years when you teach yourself as a writer to say seasons, because the football season goes over the course of 2 years. So it's grammatically incorrect to put years. So it's weird saying it like this to me. But anyway, I'll move forward. Caleb, hot or cold? If you go hot,
That's hot.
then you're saying this team deserves to be in the conversation of greatest seasons ever. And if you say it's cold, it's not. And certainly Dylan saying that was passive-aggressive ad placement cutting off Caleb. I love it, Dave. Thank you. All right. So, Caleb, let's look at this first season. You pulled up some great seasons, some memorable seasons, but some are clearly better than the others.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back. So now that we've gotten out of the Danny White era, basically, we will go back to 2007, 2008 first. Now, 2007, 2008, Tennessee became the first program in history to have the football team, the women's basketball team, and the men's basketball team all finish in the top 12. The men's basketball team reached number 1, won the SEC regular season title. The football program won the SEC East, and if not for an Ainge pick six, goes and wins the SEC championship against LSU. And also, John Chavis couldn't figure out Ryan Perrilloux because John Chavis and backup quarterbacks go together like oil and water. And so, but still had them in the running. And then the Lady Vols, Candace Parker's last year, won the national title. The problem is baseball was really bad during that time with Todd Riley.
Yeah.
But this honestly, Dave, we just talked about it. Even with Lady Vols, I know you look at them kind of similar because they're not revenue producing sports, but to the Tennessee fan base, isn't baseball significantly below women's basketball?
That is an interesting question we might tackle tomorrow. I don't know that it is. I would have definitely said it was before they went through Holly and they went through
Kelly Harper.
Kelly Harper. Daniel says, what athletic department is in better shape than Vols currently, Dave and Caleb? I don't know of anyone. I would say comparable would be Alabama.
Alabama's got a very good athletic director in Greg Byrne.
Yeah, and I don't know what their women's basketball team's doing, the Lady Crimson Tide. I don't know what they're doing exactly, but I do know that they've got a very good men's basketball coach. They've got a very good football coach, I believe, and they've got a baseball team that was right up at the top of the ranking. So I'd say Alabama's comparable.
Yeah, they are. And also they actually have a really, really good softball program too, funny enough. And they're building a new basketball arena. Alabama's doing really well, guys.
They have a fantastic cheerleading program as well.
Do they really?
That's why Todd Kelly's sister went to Alabama instead of Tennessee, because they do the flippy stuff. Like Tennessee's cheerleaders, if you ever notice, they just go, yay, yay.
Tennessee's cheerleaders suck. Like, I'm just going to say.
Oh, the YouTube decorum right here. All right. What other years we got?
All right, now we got to go back to
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Yes.
We got to go back to the greatest year, and this is the greatest athletic year in Tennessee history, and there's really not a debate, and it's 1998-99.
That's hot.
I'm sorry. It is you had. Now, funny enough, only one national champ because the Lady Vols didn't win the national title that year. They got upset in the Elite Eight. But it's still Lady Vols, Shamika Holdsclaw era. Men's basketball finishes in the top 25, even though they lose to Southwest Missouri State by 30 in the second round of the NCAA tournament. They still finish in the top 25. And football wins a national championship. And that's like worth 50% of your score when ranking something, right? A football national title.
Yes. If it's graded on a curve, that's a good 50%. All right. What other ones? Let's run through some other seasons. And I want to share something. Who was the coach that was right before Tony Vitello?
Oh, Dave Serrano.
Yeah. I want to share something about Dave Serrano you probably don't know. And Tennessee's success nowadays can be attributed to some of the things that Dave Serrano did. Go ahead.
He's a really good dude. Yeah. Okay. So then the next one. All right. So 98-99 stands out, but we got to give credit to 97-98. So just for people who don't remember 97-98, the football team won the SEC championship. That's got to count for something, right?
Amen. It does to me. It doesn't to you.
It does to me. No, it absolutely does to me. This is 97. It's not now. Okay. Back then the SEC title mattered. That year, men's basketball went to their first NCAA tournament in 8 years because Jerry Green was just a legendary coach and just a brilliant tactician. And I just don't think Dave shows him the respect he deserves. But also then the Lady Vols had the greatest women's basketball team of all time. They went 39-0 and won the national title with Shamika Holtzclaw, Samika Randall, Tamika Catchings, the three Meeks. That team was just unbeatable.
Okay, so number one is 98-99, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so who's second? Let's see if we agree.
I think it's 97-98. I think that's right there. I think Peyton Manning's senior year in football, going to the tournament in men's basketball, which is all that matters, and winning it all in women's basketball. And when you do those three, I don't really think what happens in baseball matters.
You know what? It would definitely be number one if what? The Heisman Trophy Committee, the trust, whatever you want to call it, of which I vote for, if they hadn't just absolutely made the worst mistake ever and not giving the award to Peyton Manning. And I don't say that because I'm any sort of homer. I think you know me better than that by now. Caleb, I want to add this about Dave Serrano. So I was talking to a really good source, well-placed in Tennessee's athletic department, and he said that actually Dave Serrano was really big in cost cutting, which I know is not the sexiest thing that a coach can do. But he saved the program a lot of money. They were able to make some facility improvements that really set the table for Tony Vitello. Almost as if Serrano knew he wasn't a good enough X's and O's coach, so he wanted to find a way to help Tennessee's program. You don't hear of that a lot.
No, as a matter of fact, and this is an underrated thing, Dave Hart took a lot of heat from making this decision, and I give him a lot of credit for it. Dave Serrano, what a lot of people don't realize is Dave Serrano was a small ball coach at Cal State. I think it was Cal State Fullerton was where he was at. Somebody check that. I could be wrong. I could have him mixed up with another coach, but I'm pretty sure he was at Cal State Fullerton, and that he got Cal State Fullerton to won 3 conference titles and reached the College World Series at UC Irvine. These are all smaller levels. There was the hire of Dave Serrano was to see a small ball, like a return to old school small ball, could work in the SEC, which is loaded with pitching and power now. Spoiler alert, it didn't, and he knew it didn't. It's kind of like when Steve Spurrier didn't he just wanted to see if his system would work in the NFL? Wasn't he just trying to be like, I want to see if this works or not?
He was just a little bored.
Yeah, exactly. So Dave Serrano, it kind of came clear that it wasn't working. What you talk about, Dave Hart took a lot of heat because 2 years in a row, people wanted Serrano fired, and Dave Hart kept Serrano around. Mm-hmm. And I think he did that because he wanted to see if Serrano, or he kept Serrano around because he wanted to make sure all the ducks were in a row with the program before he went out and actually hired a new coach to build it. And he knew Serrano was doing that.
The show represented by Banks and Jones. Oh, sorry.
We left out a season too.
Okay. We don't have to get them all in, Caleb.
You just left out, you just don't like history. 1950, 1951 Vols. The football team won the national title in 1950, beating Kentucky, Bear Bryant's best team, thanks to the Great Appalachian Storm in 1950. And baseball went to the College World Series, its first ever College World Series. And Burt Reschishar was on both of those teams.
All right. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. As if you're in any sort of legal situation, you need to know banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney, they go to trial for you, and they absolutely do that. Other lawyers settle and settle for less. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios at Ted Russell Ford. It's their final weekend of truck month. They're moving some trucks. They got to clear the lot. F-150, Super Duties, and more. Special financing available. The buying process is unbelievable. They will take care of you. Now through Monday at 8 p.m., dealing on every single truck. 69 brand new 2025s ready. I guess it'd be 2026, ready to roll through special pricing with exclusive financing offers. No, it'd be 2024s. Excuse me. So my graphic was cut off a little bit there, but 69 brand new 2024s with special financing. Coming up, we're going to visit with Ron Slay, former Vol, and we always enjoyed that. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. 2 minutes, and then we dive into this. This day, it'll be stat of the day, and Urban Meyer, yet again, is a jackwagon. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, And Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Caleb has a Gary Danielson tribute segment lined up.
I don't hate Gary Danielson the way a lot of SEC fans did. I really don't.
But sometimes you got to read the room. All right.
No, I don't. I'm not one who reads the room. I create the room.
Might want to read the room. We're not coming on here talking about Boise State for 2 hours. All right, Caleb. This stat of the day is what? Do you want the music bet or not? You decide.
No, I don't need the music. I got my stat ready to roll.
Don't dance along with me. That makes it look like we're dancing together.
So what?
It's very effeminate. Go ahead.
You've never done a choreographed dance with a guy in a club before? Because I have. We both knew levels. We both knew the entire dance moves, the choreography to the levels by Avicii. And we were the only two. So, of course, we took over. But, yeah. Anyways. It was a dance. We didn't hold hands or anything. We both just did the choreography. I'm sorry. If y'all aren't
I remember
doing
a break dance show when I was 10.
You can break dance?
No, I did all the standing moves. All right, go. What do we?
So you pretended to DJ basically while someone.
I wasn't one of the Beastie Boys. I was Mixmaster Mike.
Okay. Well, on this, this is the stat of the day. Tennessee, Jemai Mashak with Tennessee's win over UCLA last Saturday, has now played in the most NCAA tournament wins of any player in Tennessee basketball history. He has played in 8 NCAA tournament wins by the Vols, surpassing Wayne Chisholm's record of 7. When the two tip off on Friday, when Tennessee and Kentucky tip off on Friday, Jemai Mashak will set the record for most NCAA tournament games played in ever by a Tennessee player with 12.
Yeah. But you don't think I can break dance, Caleb?
No, I don't. By the way, another great stat.
Does anybody break dance anymore, by the way?
Yeah, it's still a thing. I mean, it's still a thing.
I saw where Kendrick Lamar, somebody put his halftime video or his halftime at the Super Bowl. They put it to safety dance, and it fit right in. Safety dance. All right.
Another quick stat. Since we talked about megachurch pastors earlier, there's a pastor by the name of Marvin Sapp in Fort Worth, Texas, went viral this morning. Apparently, he locked the doors to his congregation and wouldn't let his congregation leave on Sunday unless they gave enough money in the offering plates. And guess what the number was required?
I don't know. Was it as much as it cost to get Robert Kimdichie? That's the way they funneled him money. Cam Newton as well. They funneled it through the church.
Well, I did not know that. No, it was $40,000. I think Cam Newton was more expensive than $40,000.
It's about 195 is what I was told.
Yeah. What? Like, yeah.
You always make it a little bit below that next qualifier, so it doesn't look like, oh, 200,000. That looks really high. So they put it right below that. Hit that like button, the subscribe button, if you haven't done that to this point, and we will talk with Ron Slay here momentarily. That's always a lot of fun. But first, what the H? Urban Meyer's in the news again. He just can't get away from it.
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, what was it that Urban Meyer had to say? I'm sure it wasn't self-serving.
No, not at all. And I'm sure he and Tim Tebow prayed on it together because Urban Meyer is a really deep Christian man, and he read a Christian program at the University of Florida.
Well, not easy. I don't want to criticize Tim Tebow for being Christian.
I'm criticizing Urban Meyer for hiding behind Tim Tebow when he was at Florida to pretend that he was running a clean program when he had a bunch of murderers and girlfriend threateners and, girlfriend stranglers and racists and rapists. And I don't know what else you want to throw out there on Florida during that time.
What was it that Urban Meyer specifically said about Alabama? If I might?
So, Urban Meyer was talking about Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. And he was talking about on the triple option, he was talking about the win total set for Kalen DeBoer, which is set at 9.5 games. And Urban Meyer goes, quote, I think they'll win over 9.5 games or win double-digit games. The question I have is, what happens if they don't? Will they pull the plug? Is that the kind of school? Ohio State and Florida. Florida's in a different place right now, but there was a time where if you weren't in the double-digit, it was out. At Ohio State, I would imagine that Day has bought a little time. Obviously, my God.
A little time. He won a national title.
I know, right? And then he goes, obviously, my God, what are we talking about? Was what he said. But then he said, but as much as I think it's neat to talk about it, will it be 9.5? I don't care. What does Alabama do if they don't hit it? Just keeps dropping are they going to fire Kalen DeBoer?
I know this is so weird. It almost defies a coaching credo. And if you don't remember last year, he said this in the middle of the season about Ryan Day and the potential pressure that could be on him. I would have never thought. First, I thought Ryan Day was going to get fired last year. To be real honest with you, I thought that he would potentially lose to Michigan, and if he did get fired, it turns out he won it all, so he's good. Yes, Urban likes his women young. He does, Daniel. So, but Caleb, I wouldn't have said that Urban Meyer would have wanted the Alabama job, but now I think that that's quite possible. I think he wants to get back in coaching. I think that the only programs he would take. I think if Florida came calling again, he'd go back there. I think he'd take Ohio State again. I think he'd take Notre Dame. I think he'd take Texas. He's kind of had he has had some public comments about them. I now think he would take Alabama. The pool has expanded to include the Crimson Tide.
Oh, I 100% think he would take Alabama now. Well, and that, not even debate. And let's point this out a little bit. Urban Meyer, has about a list of about 10 schools he'd be willing to coach at. Don't you think it's about 10? That he would have all the resources he needs to win.
I once thought it was Notre Dame and Ohio State only. I now lean towards you. If you made me pick between 2 and 10, I'll take 10.
Yeah, it's about 10. And by the way, Tennessee's on that 10. He said some things earlier this year where he's clearly gunning for the Tennessee job if he can get it too. It's like Tennessee, Texas, Ohio State. I think Notre Dame's out. Look, say whatever you guys can criticize Notre Dame all day. Notre Dame they actually do believe in the standards they set, and they would never accept an Urban Meyer at their program now.
No, because it undermines their competitive nature. Because I've mentioned this before, you don't control discipline, you don't control admittance. So when you don't have those two things, I mean, you would be crazy not to uphold your virtuous approach to athletics in other areas if it's actually going to hurt you in terms of roster building.
No, exactly. Notre Dame basically does what Joe Paterno claimed he did at Penn State. They really do try to do the victory with honor thing, and it's why they haven't had much victory in the last 40 years. But
it's hard to do both. I will say
yeah.
this. I don't think that Tennessee is as high up on that list as you do. I think that David pointed out LSU would open up a checkbook to book Kelly in a heartbeat. I think LSU would. Let's have fun with this for a second. Schools that I think Urban Meyer would go to before Tennessee. Rhonda, it's not happening. Don't worry. I don't want to scare you. It's not going to be Urban Meyer. He's not going to be at Tennessee anytime soon. But I would say I'm going to take
Florida. It's obvious.
Okay, I was actually going to take them out of the equation, but let's include Florida. Florida, if they called and said, "Hey, we'd like to have you back because the whole area has been way too civil, and we need some wild, crazy dudes out here shooting machine guns around. That's what we need. And by the way, we have the Purple Porpoise. If you would like to go pick up younger chicks, we can work that out as well." So, okay, Florida, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame. I got a solid 5.
See, I think Notre Dame's off that list, but I'll give you the other 4. Florida, Ohio State, Texas.
Why do you think Notre Dame would be off the list?
Because everything you just said. Urban Meyer, Notre Dame there is no way that marriage will work. Urban Meyer doesn't believe in honor, in general.
That's probably true. I don't think they would offer him. I just think he would take it.
Maybe he would take it, but he would have the same standards that he said in 2005. Do you remember what happened? He almost took the Notre Dame job. He said, "I'll only take this, though, if you give me control over discipline." And they said no. And that's why he didn't take the Notre Dame job.
Happen.
Yeah. So
I'm having trouble coming up with the second 5.
All right. I've seen him undercut USC a good bit recently. I think he would take the USC job.
Southern California, and I'm going to throw A&M in there. Thanks to our message board. Great job, Adam.
Yeah, A&M's a good one.
7.
What about Michigan?
Wow. He wants a team that's going to win a championship. If you think that he's loyal to Ohio State, Florida, his wife, or anybody else, you're insane. So I will not rule out the Michigan job because they can win a championship. Wow.
They can. But could they see, with Tennessee, the reason I bring up the Tennessee job is I think you and I both know, given where Tennessee is located, they're kind of an adaptable program that could really run any sort of offense a coach wants to run, right? Because of the recruiting in the area. Michigan, can you win at Michigan without running that power I pro style offense? Are you ever going to have enough speed to run the spread offense that he wants to run at Michigan?
Yeah, but that offense was really triple option based to what he ran, and it was.
But it was speed based with the triple option.
Well, it was, but it was predicated on the power up front. I thought first.
But you needed the track star. The Pouncey brothers and the kind of the fullback and quarterback. But you needed the track stars at receiver, didn't you? The Percy Harvins, the Jeff Demps, those guys.
You just needed one. You
think he can get 1 or 2 at Michigan? Spread
you out horizontally. I thought you just needed 1.
Okay, well, he had 4 or 5 though. That was the crazy part.
But he was able. He went with Harvin most of the time, right? And then he replaced him with Demps. I think he could find 1. I don't know that he would have the depth that he had at Florida. So maybe one season goes off the rails. But I could see him winning the championship at Michigan. That would make me physically ill.
Yeah, that's all right. So I think we've got the list. We got about 8. What about the last couple? Oklahoma. I don't know if Oklahoma's on the list anymore. I don't know if Oklahoma's the job it was just 5 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think so.
And then Nebraska. I'm thinking of other top 10 schools. So we got the list pretty much. That he would take over Tennessee. So Tennessee's definitely in that.
Oregon.
Oh, Oregon. That Nike money could get him some talent up there.
And perhaps Washington. That may be a bit of a reach.
In the Big Ten now, that's a bit of a... What about then Penn State? Is that even possible?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, maybe. It feels like, though, doesn't it feel like James Franklin is going to coach that job until he kills over?
I think Penn State is so thankful that there's stability at the program, given what they went through, that they don't want to do anything to mess up stability.
Yeah, I think they'd be okay with a 6-6 season.
I think so too. I mean, for those who don't know, Penn State, I don't know I thought their program was done permanently after the scandal that happened. I didn't think it was ever going to recover. So I think that the fact that they're just semi-recovered, I think, is big. So yeah, we'll go Tennessee is probably number 8 though, because I think Tennessee's ahead of Penn State and Oregon, don't you? If you're over
I'm when you get past that, our initial 7, I'm not sure that I feel strongly that he would go to any of those schools.
No, I don't either.
Let me ask you this, Caleb. Do you have a bigger issue if you're a school looking at him with what went on at Florida and to some extent Ohio State, or just the pure stupidity and gall it took for him to be caught in his own restaurant with a younger lady, not his wife. I mean, I know that one is illegal. I know that one hurt people. The other one just hurt his wife, I guess. So maybe that's okay to him. But to me, the gall of that and the brazen nature of that is almost as bad as the rest of his track record.
I agree. But to me, it's the Ohio State one still the most gall, because again, he showed gall in all these scenarios, by the way. And let's just go back to the 3 instances of when Urban Meyer showed blatant like gall. Florida, 2009, Brandon Spikes tries to blind a player on the field, tries to gouge a Georgia player's eyes out. Urban Meyer comes out the next day and says, I'll suspend him for a half against Vanderbilt, just to try to throw a middle finger. And then the SEC steps in and it's like, no, you got to suspend him for the game. And so they suspend him for the game. Ohio State, this is still the worst, Dave. His assistant coach was beating his wife and he didn't fire him. And then when it got called, he still was like, I'm not going to do it. But I mean, that's still the worst, isn't it?
Did you know that Duke coach John Shire lost most of the vision on one of his eyes? And when he was playing for the Miami Heat, that's how he got into coaching.
I did not. That's totally random, but
yeah.
I don't know where that came from. But
well, eyes, gouging eyes.
Oh, gouging eyes. Okay. But like the Zach Smith scandal is still one of the worst, because the thing is and by the way, also just the level of like not just hiding behind Tim Tebow at Florida. Urban Meyer, and you guys should watch this. This is still up. After Florida State won the national title in 2013, and Urban Meyer was at Ohio State, he went on Bill O'Reilly, and they were talking about Jameis Winston and all the trouble he's getting. And they didn't talk about the rape, but they talked about the crab legs and the kind of like other like little crimes that Jameis Winston got involved in. Urban Meyer literally goes at one point, yeah, it'd be really hard for me to let some of that stuff go. Really, Urban? It'd be really hard for you to let some of that stuff go?
Those that don't remember, he walked out of the store with crab legs. I actually have fairly recently forgotten to pay for something. So I'm going to give him grace on that.
Yes.
And I walked out and I realized I hadn't paid for it. And I turned around and I went back to the store. Now, I don't know that Jameis Winston did that. He probably went home and ate his crab legs. He was good to go. Ron Slay set to join us in 2 minutes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Hit that thumbs up button. Ron Slay up next. If you got questions for Ron Slay, go ahead and fill them out on the message board, and I'll get them to you. We'll talk about how Tennessee back in 2000-2001 tried to get right with the Lord, so to speak, and it may have cost them a run to the Final Four. For Caleb Calhoun, you can read more about that if we want to drop that in the message board on offthehooksports.com. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports. 2 minutes, Ron Slay.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Caleb, where does Ron Slay rank among your favorite players of all time?
Oh, among my favorite?
Yeah, favorite basketball players.
Oh gosh, he's in my top 3.
He is me too, man.
I love players with moxie, and they kind of reminded me of, funny enough, because I was such a fan of the grit and grind Grizzlies era, like Zach Randolph, because I'm like, Ron Slay was the type of guy that was not going to get punked under the basket, and Ron Slay was like, if you're a superstar power forward, I'm going to punk you and see if you can handle me punking you first.
The moment I knew I liked Ron Slay is when I went to him, and you remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Yes, I don't remember it, but I know the movie.
Okay. Well, I printed off a scene from that, and it was going to be Name That Movie, and I was going to have players do this with me. So he was what was the guy's name? The stoner guy?
I don't remember that movie at all.
Okay. Well, Sean Penn played that character, and he was he was going to play that character. So I was Mr. Hand, for those that don't remember. And we had a really fun time doing that. And Tennessee Sports Information Department, led by Bud Ford, as they usually did, rained all over my parade. Not a fan. All right. Our poll question is this. What was a better Tennessee football season? 2022, 2024. 2022 gets 68% of the vote. 2024, 32% of the vote. Now, Spicoli it was. I'm sorry. I really struggled with that one. You said 2022, and you're in the majority, so go ahead and crow and defend your point, Caleb.
I don't have to defend it. They defend it for me. 2022 was a better season. Tennessee played a tougher schedule, went 11-2 as opposed to 10-3. If not for the Hendon Hooker injury, they're in the college football play. If not for South Carolina cheating and the Hendon Hooker injury, they're in the college football playoff with the top 4 teams, of which they would not have made this past year. They didn't go 10-2 because one team cheated. Okay, they went 10-2 because they legitimately lost 2 games this past year. They didn't have a Heisman candidate in New York. They would have had one in 2022 if not for the injury. They also beat Alabama in 2022, a much better Alabama team than the one they beat in 2024. As a matter of fact, their second best win in 2022 was at LSU, which was better than any of their wins in 2024. And you can maybe say their third best win, Clemson, was better than any of their wins in 2024. So they had 3 wins in 2022 that were better wins than any of their wins in 2024. So yeah, no, 2022 was better.
Okay. 2024, you made the college football playoff. You got that much more exposure for your program. To argue anything other but 2024 is absurd.
No.
It is.
Making a 12-team playoff versus making a 14 playoff. You know what you are? Okay. You know how Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's record in 162 games and got 61, whereas Ruth had 60 and 154. People try to be like, nope, Roger Maris has the record. He hit the most home runs. Like, yeah, he played 8 more games. Like, you had to put the asterisk by that.
No. Here's the difference. You get the publicity for your program.
I'm just judging the season in a vacuum. You're judging it from the perspective of recruiting and all the things that matter going down the road. And by the way, I think Tennessee got their publicity in 2022. That Alabama win was more publicity for them than anything they did in 2024.
Now, you know what football season is. You move on to the next week.
Not in college football until this past year.
Okay. Daniel says I'm correct, so we're going to go with that. All right. We're going to get Ron Slade.
Daniel outweighs everybody.
Yeah. Daniel does a good job. Coming up, we'll have a Gary Danielson tribute segment. And first, though, it's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. March Madness ratings are up with no Cinderella and very little drama. Caleb, will this continue? Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. What say you, sir?
Yes, I think this is going to continue. And just for people who are wondering, the NCAA tournament averaged 9.4 million viewers in the second round. That's up 3% from last year. Sunday alone, they had 10 million viewers when Duke and Baylor played, Kentucky and Illinois played, and Florida and UConn played. I have said, and I've had a thesis for a long time, that people say they like upsets. People lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Lil Wayne and Yo Gotti said that.
Okay. Now, I think people like upsets, but here's the thing that speaks to your point in maybe a different way than you thought of. Who has bigger fan bases? Is it Duke, Florida, Kansas, Kentucky, Texas for that matter, or is it Murray State?
Yeah, it's the ones you named.
Right. So you're just seeing more viewers because the bigger schools are involved. I would argue
the fan bases of those teams is what you're saying.
Right. I would argue that the quality of the NCAA tournament was down this year because of the lack of upsets. I can't argue with those numbers, and it's not going to change because I believe the transfer portal is robbing the mid-majors of players that could take them deep into the NCAA tournament. So, Caleb, I'm not going to argue that the numbers are correct, and I'm not going to argue that it's going to continue to do so. But I'll tell you this, for the common guy like me, that yes, I cover Tennessee, but I just like watching the competition. I've said before, here's what I like about sports. I like when somebody goes home really, really sad, somebody goes home really, really happy. That happens in the NCAA tournament. Does it happen moving forward, or is it just about rooting for your favorite team? I'm going to agree with Caleb for a different reason. I'll say bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. The ratings will continue to increase, even though I don't think the common fan is as excited about the tournament, which is going to be 318 teams before long.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life.
Okay, so Caleb, let me just ask you this. Was this year's NCAA tournament first weekend boring?
No, I enjoyed it. I actually am. I do this crazy thing where
it was the second most boring tournament of the first weekend.
Which
is still good. It's still good. It's like the ugliest supermodel.
I do this crazy thing where I enjoy good basketball, and I'm not a person who enjoys upsets the way everybody else does in March Madness, because I think upsets, the problem with upsets is they're not legitimate, they're gimmicky. They are almost as okay, I'm sorry guys. When you watch, half the upsets you watch in March Madness are as real as when Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant.
I don't understand why you think that.
Because it's a rigged game that is designed to increase randomness so lesser teams can win.
Everybody knows that going in. It's completely orchestrated in professional wrestling. There's no comparison there.
It's borderline orchestrated in March Madness.
No,
it is. I mean, it's borderline orchestrated in March Madness. And so they decided to stop doing that. Now, this was actually, I've told you guys, this was more of an anomaly. I don't think there's going to be no upsets year to year. I think you will see upsets. They're just going to be less because the quality of play has increased now. So to pull off an upset, you actually have to play better than the other team, not get lucky from a tightly officiated game or milking a 35-second shot clock or getting red hot from a shortened three-point line that is way too short. Okay? So I think one of the best things about this is that you're not going to see this every year, all Power 4 teams in the Sweet 16, but you will see fewer upsets. I think you're right. The big name teams have more people watching. Also, Dave, you know what people like to see? Future NBA lottery picks going head to head against each other. They don't want to see this. They don't want to see this little school with 5 guys and it's their one shining moment. And then next year they're going to go work as general contractors somewhere. Not that there's anything wrong with working as a general contractor, but they're not going to the NBA. No, you want to see the NBA talent go against, you want to see the best talent face each other at some point in the tournament. That's what you want. And so the game is getting better because they're actually catering it to that idea. Then there's the other factor on this. We haven't even talked about this because I can say this for me personally. I think ratings are just naturally going up regardless of who's in because sports betting. March Madness is the second most bet on game of the year.
Yeah. I almost think you can put out a lesser product. I'm not saying let it fall off the map, but if you're a sport and you put out an A+ product, which I would say the NCAA tournament has, and it drops down to a B+, which I think it's on the verge of doing. I think with sports gambling and the purveyance of it and the fact that the largely, and I know this is not you, but they're preying on our youth.
They are.
That will keep it afloat, and more than just afloat, it'll excel.
Look, I'm totally with you, and I'm going to say this up front as someone who likes to sports gamble. It's insane that these companies aren't regulated at all. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be allowed to sports gamble. It is, but we went from like banning it to like letting them do whatever the hell they want without any like pushback whatsoever. It's like, can't we find a middle ground of legalizing but regulate it to a certain degree so they don't target 16-year-olds? Like if a liquor store went and knocked on a 16-year-old's door and said, "Here's alcohol," like they would get in trouble. But they can target you on your phone and say, "Hey, why don't you start gambling?" You know what I mean? So it's like, it's insane.
No, I mean, my kids have more friends that have problems with gambling than drugs or alcohol. Dylan says, I think NIL level, and they're the early 20s. I think NIL leveled the playing field so it feels like the real best team in college basketball will win it all. No more upsets and Cinderellas, but that's the price you paid. It's not just the NIL, it is, but it's also the transfer portal. If you look at the top prospects that were transfers and where they all went to either a team that had a legendary coach, a la Rick Pitino, or a basketball power, or a program that had a lot of money. And that's the way it's going to be forever. I think the McNeese States of the world are going to get ruled out of this thing pretty shortly. And that's unfortunate.
I think they'll still be. I still agree with you. I think they'll still be in there. I just think they will be less. They'll be less common, and I think it's good that they're less common because honestly, Dave, it was getting so common that you were forgetting who the upsets are. You forget like if I tell you remember the mid-major Cinderella to get to the Final Four. There've been so many you can't name one off the top of your head, or to make a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 run. Now, when they do it, they're going to get more remembered because they're not just a dime a dozen. I mean, what we forget with March Madness and the NCAA tournament is, Dave, upsets, Cinderellas were a dime a dozen. Okay. And so it's not special when it's a dime a dozen.
No, I think there was a time when the 3-point line was closer that you had a better argument. But that's been several years ago. David said stat of the day, Caleb, 16 of the top 50.
The 50 top players were mid-major players.
All right. What are we basing that off of?
I think I could believe that. I don't know what it's based off of, but I'm not saying I wouldn't believe that, whatever that's in reference to, because a lot of players are mid-majors. There's a stat that's out there now. The majority of Sweet 16 teams, at least 4 of their starting 5 came from another school.
Well, tell you what you're going to have really soon is you're going to have fewer Cinderellas. So maybe there'll be a bigger story when they actually break through and make it to the Elite 8 or the Final. Perhaps we can throw that out there if you want to, but I look back at some of the most talented players, Dwayne Wade, Marquette, and you've had Marquette and Gonzaga and all of these mid-majors, and I just did the air quotes if you're on our audio platforms. They did all of this stuff, Caleb, and they're not mid-majors anymore. You're spending as much on basketball as anybody else, but the differentiating factor moving forward is, can you spend as much NIL money? And they can't. The bottom line is, if Tennessee wants to get Dalton Knecht from Northern Colorado, they can. Could Dalton Knecht's absence from Northern Colorado have cost them an NCAA tournament run? Absolutely. He was the second best player walking the face of earth in college basketball last year.
Okay, but let's talk about somebody like Chaz Lanier, who never even played in an NCAA tournament. North Florida never got close when he was there, and now he's at Tennessee and he's playing. Does North Florida ever get a shot? I mean, does him being there really give North Florida a realistic shot at the NCAA tournament? Because I don't think it does.
I think they definitely make it, don't you?
No, they didn't make it all 4 years Chaz Lanier was there.
Well, but he was all of the guys that Rick Barnes is getting, they're all late bloomers because he likes guys that they improve over time.
Yes, but in this case, Chaz Lanier had already bloomed because he bloomed last year. Now, Dave, I mean, look, you're still going to see these stars. Here's where it's going to come, though. They'll have a growth spurt, and they'll be a star like their sophomore year. Like, for instance, let's bring up Murray State again. John Morant was never going to make his way to a big name program. John Morant was a breakout star as a sophomore at Murray State. Had he stayed in college, he would have made his way to a big name program. But he just went straight to the NBA. And he didn't go to the NBA before he took Murray State to the second round of the NCAA tournament and was a breakout star by upsetting Marquette. So I think, and same with Steph Curry. I think, wasn't he a sophomore when he took Davidson to the Sweet 16?
Yes.
And yeah, he wasn't going to go to he wasn't in line to transfer to a bigger program. That made him in line for a draft pick.
Going back to your point, North Florida was 15 and 17. Are you telling me with Chaz Lanier, one of the better players and one of the best conferences in the nation, are you telling me they don't get to 20 games and make the NCAA tournament?
I'm saying they make it to 20 games. I'm saying they don't make the NCAA tournament. 20 games doesn't do that for you at that level.
I'm at 20 plus.
I don't, Dave, you covered a Tennessee basketball team that had Allen Houston and another NBA player on there and Steve Hamer at center. And they couldn't
Lord, how old do you think I am?
And I'm not covered. I'm sorry. You followed those teams.
I was going to school at the time.
You followed a team that had 2 NBA players in its starting lineup, including a future NBA like borderline Hall of Famer.
This is going to sound crazy to you, Caleb, but Tennessee basketball was so dead at that time. I lived on campus, and there were times you didn't know if there was a game that night or not.
Right, with Allen Houston.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And Allen Houston couldn't get them past the second round of the NIT.
Okay.
Maybe Wade Houston was a transcendently bad head coach at the same time.
He knew his stories, though. He did like soap operas. Nothing like taking a little. What's cooler, by the way? Let's make this a poll question. Is it Wade Houston's soap operas, or did you see the quote from one of Tennessee's assistant basketball coach? It talked about Rick Barnes apparently has a golden tee machine in, and like 10 minutes before a big game, he's fine with just chilling with his golden tee machine. That didn't sound right, did it? Is that possible? Did you see that? I sent it to you.
You did send it to me. That's like an arcade thing, and Rick Barnes seems like he's too old for even the arcades. So, like,
he doesn't understand tokens.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Hit that thumbs up button, the like and subscribe button.
Or how about Jerry Green daytime drunk golf?
Well,
I'm throwing that in there.
All right. So Gary Danielson is stepping aside. What does that mean for Tennessee? Well, I think it means something because Charles Davis is going to get that gig, I'm told. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire.
your power. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Derek takes a controversial stand. He says day drinking seems better than nighttime drinking in all ways, if you ask me. Talking about Jerry Green getting drunk on the golf course during practice. And then you have Steve saying day drinking beer is fine. Whiskey, it's a problem. What's better? Let's put on the poll question. Poll that.
Well, wait, I've already got my poll up right now of which one's cooler.
Okay, day drinking or night drinking?
No. What's the coolest? Wade Houston soap operas, Rick Barnes Golden Tea Machine, or Jerry Green daytime drunk golfing?
No. I think it was. I know he went and played. Well, he probably drank when he played. All right. What's the results?
Rick Barnes Golden Tea Machine is winning it with 64%. Jerry Green daytime drunk golfing at 36%. No one respects the soap opera love that Wade Houston had. 0% for Wade Houston in the soap operas.
Kicking back, middle of the day.
Aren't you going to run practice? No, man, the soap opera's on right now.
Young and the Restless, Here We Go, and General Hospital and all that good stuff.
By the way,
opera guy, right?
I'm sorry?
You were probably a big soap opera guy, right?
No. I've never had time during the day to watch soap operas. When would I have ever had that time to watch soap operas? No, never was.
I had a friend's mom that would record them on the old VCR tape, and we would be watching sports like baseball and stuff, like the Cubs, because they only played day baseball back then. And boy, when she came in, it was time to get the hell out of the living room because she was ready to watch her soap. She was mad at the world and mad at her job and everything else. You knew it was time to run outside and play baseball. Go ahead.
Oh God, that's really funny. By the way, we talk about like lazy coaches like Jerry Green and Wade Houston who want to golf during practice and want to watch soap operas. Let's not forget, guys, that like Steve Spurrier is that level of laziness and is a Hall of Famer because he's that much of a genius.
Okay, so let's get to this. Gary Danielson set to retire after 2025. He did call some of the Vols' most memorable games. Let's start with the 2015 Georgia comeback. What will you remember about Gary Danielson's broadcast with Georgia?
Well, that one was it was Tennessee's what seemed like a turning a corner moment for Butch Jones. I know it sounds funny to say now. For those who don't remember, Tennessee opened 2015, expected to win the SEC East. They lost to Oklahoma, blew a 17-0 lead. Then they lost to Florida because Butch Jones couldn't count to 14 and couldn't use his timeouts properly in the fourth quarter. And then they lost to Arkansas the week after, so they're 2-3. Then they fall behind to Georgia 21-0, or was it 24-3? I can't remember. And there's like a 4th and 9. Josh Dobbs throws a touchdown pass to Josh Smith, and Tennessee forces a fumble on a kickoff. They score another touchdown. They come back, end up winning 30-31, and that sparks going from 2-3 to finishing 9-4 and having won 6 straight. Their only loss being in the last second to Alabama. Okay. That Georgia game was that was one of your Josh Dobbs masterpieces where he had 400 total yards of offense, 300 passing, 100 rushing, and 5 total touchdowns.
Poll that. We got a new poll question. Sam says Gary Danielson is the worst announcer in history and the biggest Alabama homer on earth, and nothing will convince me otherwise. Caleb, what's our poll question?
All right, new poll question is, should Gary Danielson be a topic? No, Caleb has been drinking.
Yeah, okay. Should Gary Danielson be a topic? That's our poll question. No, Caleb's been drinking, or yes, Caleb's on point. I love Gary Danielson.
Here's the thing, guys. Gary Danielson wasn't an Alabama homer. He just happened to call the SEC on CBS during the entire Alabama dynasty, the greatest dynasty. What's he supposed to do? Say Alabama is not a national champion this year? Okay. They
More love for Gary Danielson. Gary Danielson didn't even want to be a topic. He just got on board and voted. No, Caleb's been drinking. Daniel says, screw Gary Donaldson. He showed us very little respect, in my opinion, which only matters here.
I disagree. Guys, he didn't show Tennessee very little respect. Tennessee just sucked most of the time he was calling games. If you really watch Gary Danielson, he wanted Tennessee to be good. It's not his fault Tennessee went and... Did Gary Danielson hire Derek Dooley and Butch Jones? Did he make those moves?
Dylan says Gary was such an Alabama homer that he made the third Saturday in October such a drag to get through.
That made the third Saturday night game such a drag. Not Alabama winning every game 45-0 against Tennessee.
Steve says, as we pile on, Steve says Danielson was as good at announcing as he was a quarterback.
You guys.
Adam says Gary Danielson is a product of poor player safety. He obviously has brain damage, and you guys should be kind to him despite his terrible observations.
I don't think they're that bad.
What's the poll question again? He's the only person I've ever heard use the word bastardized.
Should Gary Danielson be a topic? No, Caleb's been drinking. Yes, Caleb's on point. I love Gary. I want to know who said I love Gary.
What's the results? We didn't get the results.
The results were 83% Caleb's been drinking.
Oh, yeah.
2% Caleb is on point.
All right. Dylan says Jalen Milroe could have thrown a pass directly to Keenan Peely, and Gary would have said it was pass interference. Man, nobody likes Gary Danielson. What other memorable games did he muck up for the Vols?
I thought he called great ones. One of the best ones was when Tennessee ended their 11-game losing streak to Florida. They played Florida in 2016, came back from 21-0 to win. Gary Danielson was the only one who said, by the way, and people aren't respecting this, Tennessee goes down 21-3 at halftime. Everybody's like, this season's over. They're losing to Florida. Gary Danielson said on the broadcast, guys, Tennessee's moving the ball. They're just not finishing the drives. But if they keep doing this up, if the defense steps up, they're going to come back and win this game. And boy, he nailed that.
Hit the thumbs up button if you hate Gary Danielson. That's shooting fish in a barrel. General Ursa says watching a broadcast with Gary was like getting teeth pulled for 3 hours. Go ahead. What's your other most memorable game before I get to Daniel's comment? Well, let's go ahead and do Daniel's. Daniel's comment. He talked smack about how Neyland, how average it was right before the A&M game when we hit 122 decibels.
Okay, wait a minute, though. That was, if I'm not mistaking, the 2020 season, and 2 weeks before Tennessee had played Florida at home, and yet Tennessee wasn't bothering to show up that day. So, like, that was just the last game of the year, and Tennessee went Pruitt fired. You would think Gary Danielson was the reason Tennessee had a decade of dysfunction, honestly. You would think he caused it.
Maybe it's Caleb and Gary.
I want to put that as a poll question.
No, I like this whole question.
Oh, I already took it down. I'm sorry.
Sam says the point is that an Alabama linebacker could have shot a Tennessee quarterback in the backfield, and Gary Danielson would have said good tackle and not roughing the passer.
Okay, here we go. Is Gary Danielson at fault for the Vols' decade of destruction? Yes, Tennessee deserves no blame, no personal responsibility.
Okay, Dylan says, I remember when Hendon Hooker got his teeth knocked out from targeting and Gary defended the Alabama player. Derek says, and if you want to look this up, you can. I'm not going to do the research. Derek says that Tennessee was 4-14 against Florida when Gary had the call. That sounds about right.
They weren't even 4-14. They haven't even beaten Florida 4 times since Gary Danielson became the call. Tennessee has beaten Florida 3 times since Gary Danielson was at CBS, and one was last year when they were on ESPN. They only beat Florida twice with Gary Danielson calling the games.
What other memorable games did Gary call?
Other memorable games was the 2016 Georgia game, the Dobbs nail boot game. He's the one who said it's another hobnail boot when Tennessee hit the Hail Mary to beat Georgia. That was a memorable one. And then the most notable ones I just got to point out were the ones that he actually.
Caleb. It's a loss.
No, it wasn't. Tennessee beat Georgia.
Oh, you said the hobnail boot game?
Yes, but Gary Danielson referred to it as another hobnail boot. So he called it the Dobbs nail boot.
Okay, sorry.
So, and then
this from Dylan. The root of all evil is money and Gary Danielson.
He also called. He also called. All right, here's there's a couple that he called before he went to SEC.
Possibly
on CBS.
the most fun I've ever had on the show. Go ahead.
So before he went to SEC on CBS, Tennessee visited Miami in 2003 and won 10-6. Gary Danielson called that game, and again was the only one giving Tennessee credit because the rest of the studio was like, "Look at all these mistakes Miami's making," and Gary Danielson was like, "They were playing disciplined football, and Casey Clausen never made the critical mistake." And he called the 1990 Tennessee-Florida game that Tennessee won 45-3. Interestingly enough.
Okay, another post on the message board. Do you want to update us on poll question? You
yes,
messed it up though, didn't you?
Is Gary Danielson at fault for the Vols' decade of dysfunction? Yes, Tennessee deserves no blame. No, that was all the Vols' fault.
Okay, how about this? Gary Danielson doesn't use a microphone. He uses a pitchfork.
Sounds like you wrote that.
I did write that.
Oh, Lord. You guys are ridiculous. So he's retiring, and the real story is should we just mention, or should we just have more fun with this? Because I was going to have the story that Charles Davis is replacing him.
No, I think that I think that's good for Tennessee. I'm not sure it's huge. I mean, I think Peyton Manning being a public figure for Tennessee is good for Tennessee. I don't know that it wins them a football game.
Yeah, so I think that it's not. I don't think it's going to help Tennessee at all either. I'm not like one of those people that it's like it's going to help Tennessee, but I do think that it is a nice little.
Charles also doesn't, and it's because he's busy, and I think he lives in L.A. I could be wrong, but it's because he's kind of removed from the program. He doesn't wear his fandom on his sleeve. I think most people watch a game with Charles Davis and they think that was a really well called game. I think most people know that Peyton Manning went to Tennessee, and they're like, "Oh, that's Peyton Manning. He went to Tennessee, right?"
Yeah, no, they do.
Daniel says, "I don't care if he saves a busload of kids. Screw Gary Donaldson."
Okay, who do people hate more, Vern or Gary?
I don't know, but this is what Dylan has to say. Rumor has it Gary and Urban are best friends, and Gary Danielson is sabotaging Georgia for Alabama giving sports cars to Georgia players. Whoa! Now he's affecting.
I never understood the Gary Danielson hate. I thought he was good, honestly. And I say that as someone who I shouldn't say stiff. That's a weird word. He ghosted me at SEC Media Days a couple of years ago. So I didn't like that, but I thought he did a good. But okay, but it like I feel like that. Can I just say this honestly, David? You tell me if I'm right on this. Do you think Tennessee fans hate the SEC on CBS, Vern Lundquist, Gary Danielson duo a little bit more because that was the decade of dysfunction? So when they were on CBS, they were usually getting the what beat out of them, and that's what they think about is losing so badly.
Listen, here are my thoughts on Gary Danielson. I've had a lot of fun with this, but here are my thoughts on Gary Danielson. I thought he was pretty critical of all teams. I didn't think it was more about Tennessee. I do think your point about Alabama being great and Tennessee being down, that played into the narrative. And I don't want to sound bad. Vern Lundquist probably held on a little bit too long.
Vern did.
I thought there were some broadcasts in which maybe he wasn't completely on top of things. And I don't know.
But I think the biggest reason he did was because starting in when the SEC was on that run of national championships, why would you want to leave when you're like calling like the best conference doing that? But also, and you can track this, SEC games got so much more wildly exciting for some reason starting in about 2009. And I mean, why like if you're Vern Lundquist, why would you, and I always bring it up, the Alabama-Auburn game 2013. One of the things Vern Lundquist understood more than I think any broadcaster is you let a moment speak for itself on TV, right? And he knew that, and he did that multiple times.
The best play-by-play guy ever is Pat Summerall with John Madden. And John Madden got all the pub because Pat Summerall knew to step out of the way and say about 1/4 of the words that John Madden did. That's what you should do as a play-by-play guy on television. You got to get the heck out of the way. Dylan says, Gary rooted for Germany in the 1940s.
So did Walt Disney.
I don't know if you're a history buff, but everybody's afraid of North Korea. And how about Germany? The first time was pretty close. The second time they had that crazy guy.
Yeah, that megalomaniac.
Yeah. Other than that, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Gary Danielson started COVID. Hit that thumbs up button. We'll talk to you at 10 a.m. weekdays. Off the Hook Sports. Great coverage, at least I think so, on offthehooksports.com. If you're a fan